Talent is the new currency. That is a simple quote and theme from the book Economic Development is Not for Amateurs by Jay Garner and Ross Patton. Today, we have two great guests who are certainly not amateurs in economic development to discuss the topic of talent attraction and retention with us. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Briggs. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Buxton, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Please use the Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar to submit any questions that you may have along the way. We'll do our best to get to all the questions with the time that we have. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will share that recording with all registrants later this week. One final note before we introduce our guests, Buxton is offering to all registrants a complimentary analysis for your community to help you better understand your residents, workforce, and visitors to explore opportunities for targeted business expansion and retention. Either now or at the end of the day's discussion, be sure to scan this QR code to request your complimentary analysis. Now, let's begin with our introductions. We have got Cristina Paredes, who is the director of the Tallahassee-Leon County Office, excuse me, let me say it again, the Tallahassee-Leon County Office of Economic Vitality. And she has served the people of Leon County, Florida throughout her professional career. Cristina, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here today and talk to you a little bit about talent.
Good deal, good deal. We also have with us Danielle Casey, who is the president and CEO of Albuquerque Economic Development, which serves the greater Albuquerque metro area. Before joining Albuquerque 1 year ago, Danielle served as the Executive Vice President for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, and prior to that as the Economic Development Director for the city of Scottsdale, Arizona. And with that, Danielle, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Although, Chris, I'll tell you, we got to look at your registrant list today, and I think we can learn just as much from all the awesome people that are watching. So looking forward to the discussion.
Hopefully they will share some of their thoughts and some of their questions as well to add to the conversation as we go along. We'll monitor those questions as best we can. So let's get started with the time that we have today. And I'd like to set the stage with you sharing for context a little bit about the economic development organizations that serve in your community. In a snapshot, and we'll start with you, Cristina. Tell us about your community and the vision and goals for economic development and really what you're about.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris, for having us on. Tallahassee is located in the state capital of Florida. And since it is college football season, you do have to say go Noles. We're home to the Florida State Seminoles and FAMU Rattlers. So fall is great here in the great city of Tallahassee. Our population is about 300,000, just under that, and the MSA just teeters not to about 100 or 300 to 400,000. And we serve our county area, so we're a county economic development office and working very closely as well as the city. We represent both. And our main goals are fostered within business recruitment, retention and expansion, supporting our talent pipeline and partners in that area. And we're home to the National Mag Lab, so we have a huge focus on drawing and attracting talent here as the magnetic capital of the world, and a lot of our business recruitment efforts circle around that.
All puns intended, right?
All puns intended. Yes, yes.
All right, Danielle, same question to you. Tell us a little bit about your EDO and what your vision and goals are there in Albuquerque.
For sure, for sure. Well, I have had the distinct and amazing pleasure of heading up this organization since last October. So I took a new job in a new state on Halloween, basically. So it's been a fun ride. And what I can tell you about that, well, first of all, Albuquerque Economic Development Inc. does serve the 4-county metro region. And what's pretty cool about the organization is it's got a 60-year history in this market. So, we've got lots of documentation information that shows how we were first born and then, formally incorporated and separated as an independent entity in the 80s. So tremendously long history and a lot of respect and lineage there with AED in terms of serving this overall region. We're a market of about 950,000. Now, if I loop in Santa Fe, which is just, a little 60-minute drive up the road and is a tremendous destination spot. That gets us to a little over 1 million in terms of that regional market. So, lots of cool, amazing stuff happening here. I'm still getting out and learning it quite a bit, but some of the really interesting industry that's growing rapidly. So you've got magnets, we've got lasers, we've got directed energy in space. So I don't know, maybe we can stick those together somehow. We're also kind of the new home of Hollywood. We've got a massive footprint in the film industry with tremendous investment by Netflix. Just another, billion plus announced last year on top of their existing footprint, NBC Universal. So a lot of that going on. And that kind of backs into when you ask about the work we do as a regional EDO, our primary role is business attraction, bringing that into the market, promoting the region nationally. But we do also work on quite a bit of business retention and expansion. And it'll be a great conversation today. I would report that a lot of EDOs, a tremendous amount of their bread and butter in the last year has been on local business expansions, more so than ever in the past. But that's our work. And when you ask about our priorities, what's been really cool is the first thing I did, because when they recruited, my predecessor was here 25 years and retired. So it was a great opportunity and time to come in as a new CEO with a board that was supportive of doing a new strategic plan. We just rolled that out at the end of June. And really the top key pillars that are external to our organization are diversifying our economy. We're largely government dependent in New Mexico and in this region. We want to change that. Building a national brand, which is a little bit lacking, but there's a lot of opportunity. And then really, really driving competitiveness issues.
All right. Well, so you talk about some of those pillars, some of those main goals coming out of that strategic planning there for your EDO, Danielle. To what extent, and tying right into our conversation today, to what extent does talent attraction and retention play into those goals and focus areas?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful question. Well, when we wrote the strategic plan, first we had it designed with 2 consulting partners that helped us out. And one of them actually founded and coalesced all the mayors and communities in Greater Phoenix back in the 80s, as well as did similar work in Baltimore. So we brought someone in that knows how to align a regional community. And she did a SWOT analysis to understand what the community's desires and temperatures were. And then the other half of that team was Hickey Global, which looked at everything through the lens of a site selection consultant. So when you do all of that analysis and you look at what has to happen, you definitely see any holes in your talent very, very quickly. One of the competitiveness issues that we saw right away that we're working to combat was the fact that, New Mexico is getting older. We're not getting younger, we're getting older. And if our population continues in the way it is with a lower labor participation rate than some other competitor markets and an aging population, our talent and workforce is going to continue to slide in the wrong direction. So we're very opposed to that, obviously. So it became a key piece in the competitiveness element in our strategy. And what's really interesting is after kicking off that strategy in June, one of our first steps was to immediately turn around and launch a financial feasibility study. Every strategic plan in the world can look beautiful, and you can write down all the ideas and objectives and goals and and metrics you want, and you're not going to hit any of them if you aren't adequately funded. And a new strategy with new initiatives needs funding. So what's been really eye-opening just in the last few weeks, and we're working with a group called Power 10. I see a lot of folks on the list that are from the Southeast. These guys are out of Atlanta, and they're tremendous experts. And it's been very interesting because I'll tell you the one thing above all that has resonated in the feasibility study interviews so far in our community has been investors saying that talent piece is what I need help with. That talent piece is critical. So it's while we knew it was a key piece of our strategy, it is bubbling up higher and higher and higher here in the Albuquerque metro.
So certainly tying into the theme, talent is the new currency.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got Jay actually guest speaking at my board retreat in 2 weeks over the lunch hour. So yeah, we're selling a lot of books for him.
So Christina, on talent attraction and retention, what does that mean to your EDO and to the communities you're serving there in Leon County?
Yeah, I really like some of the points that Danielle brought up. Having that strategic plan is key. Unlike Albuquerque, our office has been around since 2016, so relatively new in the, in economic development kind of arena here. But we did the same thing that Danielle talked about. You have to have that strategic plan in order to be able to create buy-in for your community, pull your partners in and collaborators. And, after working from that plan for 5 years, we hit 82% of hitting those key initiatives throughout that. Worked with Vision First advisors. Again, like Danielle mentioned, a lot of people from the Southeast. So Gray Swope and his team are out of the Mississippi, Florida area and headquartered here in Tallahassee. So they've been great to work with, and we're now re-upping that. And when we're talking about what metrics are important for our strategic plan, one thing that we all agreed on, that each one of these areas needs to have talent supporting that, because talent isn't just one pillar of our strategic plan. It supports all the pillars of strategic plans, and looking at it more holistically and inclusive into that, and not just a standalone philosophy. And we've been able to pull our partners in from our community to talk about this. Our Career Source Board supports a Florida-Georgia alliance that services right on our border communities here, since we are just to the south of Georgia here. So having that alliance and talking about those key projects that are coming up, since workforce knows no boundaries, is important too. So those are, some things that we're working on, working with our local community and our local chambers to all kind of be on one talent pipeline process as we build talent in manufacturing. If we're going to go after and build that magnetic capital of the world cluster, we got to have that talent here to support those manufacturers that are growing, as well as in technology and IT, and having those stacked credentials and really attracting workforce here. We're a government town. A lot of technology is part of that, and we're seeing a lot of software companies located here taking advantage of that GovTech and FinTech key IT clusters. So those are some really important talent initiatives that you have when you look at our workforce too, and just being an attractive place for talent is important to our economic development efforts and to our local officials as well.
So when you think about some of the industries, the major industries there, you've named some of them off, and the mag industry as well, becoming a hub for that. And you mentioned also training up the workforce there to match those needs. So there's a little bit of tapping into the resources you already have there in your metropolitan area there and in Leon County. To what extent are you seeing people workforce come in migrate from other parts of the country or the world to come put down roots there with you?
We are seeing a lot of people, mostly all this is anecdotal as we're trying to figure out too on how to best track these metrics, but we're seeing a lot of folks that have attended school at Florida State University and or have been from here who've moved away and now are returning to Tallahassee to raise their families and establish, kind of that second part in their career. They've come back, they've learned a few things, we call them boomerangs, and now they're here. Our community is extremely family friendly and kind of that's what they want to raise their family here, not be on those long commutes in and out of town. And they have the ability to work remotely as well. And so we've seen a lot of that in our area too. And then the other key piece of that is, when you look at the talent coming from Florida State University and Florida A&M, it's the #1 HBCU in the country. How do we keep that talent here? So that they don't have to leave? How do we create those jobs and diversify out of our state focus on state government jobs and keep them here? So those are conversations that our community is having as well.
Okay, so Danielle, for Albuquerque there, some of the key industries that you noted. So is the workforce developing at keeping up with the demand locally and the training that you might be doing or educational institutions might be doing? Or are you seeing people coming in from out of market to satisfy that?
I want to see the markets that are keeping up locally, because I don't know if anybody would really say we are so on top of that. We're producing surplus talent in all the right places every day. I mean, if you are, please please let me call you and pick your brain.
Chat lines are open. Yes.
Right, exactly. Chat lines are open. I'm here to learn as well. I think it is very interesting. So again, rolling out this strategy, we really looked at some of our key target industries and other issues. And one of the things we've got, Sandia National Labs, and the research and development going on there and through the Air Force Research Labs is off the charts. We actually have a very, very high concentration of PhDs and master's degrees folks. Now, the trick is, those folks are here because there are things that they could do in those institutions that they can't do anywhere else. It is a very, very unique niche skill set and occupation. And I doubt they're actually looking for jobs, although it's a wonderful asset to have in the community. Right now, our market is lagging when we look at high school and then bachelor's graduation rates. So that was a key piece in our strategy. I will say that we do a tremendous job in our community college system. C&M is a top-notch program, and they're doing wonderful work in the area of trades and training up. Where we have a big opportunity that we're going to be ramping up as part of this rollout is, have we been, and I also have seen very few markets, some have done this successfully, but I think it's hard in every market. Have we been adequately connecting the business community with what their needs are now, but not just that, but asking them, what do you think you're going to need in 2 or 3 years, and taking some risk in standing up programs to be able to say, don't worry, we're already working on satisfying that ahead of the game. I think we would all say that we're thinking about it and trying to do it, but is there actual data that's showing that that's happening? So in terms of trying to pull in talent from outside of the region, there's a couple of cool things going on that we're already drawing attention to. So the city of Albuquerque launched because we had really tremendously low COVID numbers. We have very, very high vaccination numbers in our state. Part of that's because we got a lot of land and not a high concentration of population. It's a large state with about 2.5 million folks total, which has been wonderful for the people that live here. So there was a big promotional campaign from the city's offices that is built around remote worker attraction and talent attraction. We do have some wonderful groups working on, there's a group called STEM Boomerang working on exactly that boomerang. I totally agree with Christina. Your best opportunities for talent are people that already have an affinity for the community and already have some love for it. One of the reasons I was attracted to this role in this community, I was a military kid, so I was everywhere, but I do love the Southwest, and I was in Arizona for 20 years. So to me, it already felt like home. One thing we're actually rolling out at a program tomorrow morning is a student partnership with UNM, University of New Mexico, where we took students, free students and faculty are always great. I wrote up some projects at the beginning of the year, and they worked on these all summer long. And now we're announcing a joint regional innovation series. And the whole idea is, how are we partnering and actually taking actually actionable steps? So not just coming together to talk about something, but coming together as a think tank, talking about researching an issue, coming up with recommendations, and then coming back in 3 months with what have we done? What have we done? And this is all partnership directly through the university and us. And one of the student projects this summer was just that. We asked them to take a deep dive on creative strategies for talent attraction and retention across the country, looking at who's doing cool things, and then taking all of that and going, okay, what would make sense for greater Albuquerque and New Mexico? So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to celebrate them tomorrow.
What's interesting is that perspective, that I would imagine the results of that research are influenced by the perspective of the age and the demographic of the person that did the research. So that isn't somebody that's 50 years old like me looking in and going, well, this is what makes this an attractive place for young workers to come.
Well, and one of the reasons I love having students do research projects for economic development is they've got great data resources. They've got wonderful coaches with the faculty at the university, but they also have fresh eyes on economic development, right? And they're thinking about their careers and future. So you're absolutely right. You learn just as much from them.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, let's
I really like that, Danielle. I just want to take them. I really like that. As you were talking through, we've talked about how to retain the students, and asking them for that feedback on what would make them a boomerang? Why would they stay here, and dive into some other recruitment strategies? That's excellent.
Cool.
And making an assignment too, get other people to do your work.
I know, exactly. That's efficient use of resources.
Right. Delegation.
I can hear everybody in the audience writing that down.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, so let's talk about, I think Christina, you mentioned it in one of your responses, but let's dig a little bit deeper into the idea of quality of life and quality of place, what that means in the overall effort to attract and retain talent. And another concept here. So, I mean, I know a lot of times in economic development, we talk about hard infrastructure, the softer infrastructure. So parks, trails, libraries, arts, entertainment, those types of things. Your perspective on how those things are leveraged and the degree to which they are important and a feature of your efforts in talent attraction and retention.
Oh, I think they're key. Because when you look at, kind of our three legs of capital and people and place, capital and people can move. They're mobile, but your place isn't. So you have to make your place the best that it can be to be able to attract the capital and the people. And in Tallahassee, we've invested in ourselves, a penny of our sales tax dollars go towards the large infrastructure projects, including the soft infrastructure parks. They're building a state park that it's right in between our two universities that's going to be shaped like the Rattler from FAMU. And, taking a brownfield in the middle of downtown and creating a jewel of a park that serves as an amphitheater. That's resulted in about a $200 million investment from the private sector to build a hotel, a rooftop bar, and apartments right there along there. So these are all really key things to help grow for that. We took one of our roads, again, right in between the universities, and put it on a road diet and created a walkable community with the sales tax dollars. And that was a $30 million government project that now has over $500 million in private sector investments. And 5 or 6 hotels are popping up in and along that intersection. It's a great spot to be in the middle of college football weekend. And it's a real talent draw and attractor from that. And then, enhancing places for families and the parks and trails. We have we're gold or silver certified for mountain biking in here. We have a lot of blueways and greenways, but all that kinds of builds and allows our grassroots marketing team, Choose Tallahassee, to help push a quality of life that's attractive. We've been named in the top 10 cities by Southern Living, and just kind of building on those accolades of a highly educated environment with good schools and good quality of life.
So you've got something there, and you mentioned marketing aspect of that there as well. Can I ask to what extent, with your organization, who are you partnering with in these efforts within the community and the initiatives? You're at the table. Who else is at the table, and how big a role does your office play?
So for marketing, we're at the table with our tourism partners, our 3 chambers, that grassroots organization called Choose Tallahassee, that started off to attract retirees into our area, kind of returning FSU alumni to serve as mentors, and have really branched out to be more inclusive to capitalize on the boomerangs. And then we have key people within our talents. The universities are key to have at that table too. Of course, ourselves, and a lot of other folks that are really invested in the growth of our community overall.
All right. So Danielle, same theme over to you. I mean, you've got a wonderful palette to work with in New Mexico, just a beautiful part of the country. So what role does all that play in talent attraction and retention for you?
For sure. Well, I'll tell you a fun little story. Although it's a little bit in the broader context of economic development. Although, then we can talk about the twist that it has for talent attraction. But when I came in to the market, and it was this weird, probably my first 4 or 5 months were all these Zoom meetings. So I said, I'll take any meeting there is. I'll present to any organization. So, young leaders groups, the Rotary Club, NAOP, everybody, any meeting. And everyone I did in those first few months, I did a little live poll. One, to keep people from falling asleep. And then number two, to keep me from falling asleep, and then to gather some preliminary data. And one of the questions I asked everyone in the community, in the local community, was, what do you think our best assets are? And because I wanted to see what their elevator speech was and had been. And overwhelmingly, we kept getting responses from local community members that the climate and the weather is amazing, and we don't have any earthquakes. And I was like, that is true. And those are awesome things. But things we can't control. So great. Our best assets for economic growth are things we really can't control, not in a tremendously direct way, although you can certainly discuss community beautification and access to trails and all those things, which we have a ton of. So when we did our strategic plan, I asked the site selection consultant team to tackle that and look at it. And they ran all the data and they said, okay, yeah, compared to the larger, world in the country, yes, you probably rank higher when you look at, hazard indexes for natural disasters and all those things. But when you look at the markets you're probably competing with projects on, you're kind of in the middle. So my message to the community is, don't rest on your laurels in terms of your natural environment being this resource that you should love it. People in cold weather climates that love their communities still love it. I mean, there's a reason why people are in all different parts of the country, and there's something to love about every market. So I'm careful about that. So there are some big things underway that we are working on. I will say, COVID hasn't been a friend to anybody's downtown or urban core. And it has not been a friend to Albuquerque's urban core. We're already having some challenges before then, but there are some very big eyes on it in the city. I'm actually really excited right now. It's a little bit locally controversial. So, that is what that is. I don't see a lot of New Mexico people here, maybe some Las Cruces folks, but the city councils there's going to be a vote out for funding for a soccer stadium in the downtown urban core. I personally think there's nothing you can do that's more important or better timed right now than investing in entertainment infrastructure and venues that create a vibrant, dynamic, engaging, and activated urban core. I've never seen a business or a community or anyone, especially early in their careers, our younger generations of workforce, that don't want to be able to have a cool downtown they can go to. So I think that's really tremendous. I'm excited to see that. I'm working in tandem and in partnership with city staff and other community leaders that are working on initiatives there for downtown revitalization. So I think that's a really amazing one. So we need some better toolkits to accomplish that and to accomplish that investment. One thing we don't have is, a dedicated house and sales tax or anything like that specific to economic development or economic development marketing. So AED, whenever I can get members of the legislature or other folks to listen to me, which they are very willing to do. I keep, beating the drum of, from my perspective, we should be investing in economic development 3 times as much as a comparable market, because we are such a small market at this point. And, and having additional investment, it's always that old adage of, in a recession, don't communities always hack back on economic development marketing, whether it's to talent or otherwise, when it's exactly the opposite of what they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are really key things. I echo everything Christina said about community assets and resources. One of the other things our strategy is working to do, we don't have a great reputation when it comes to our K-12 school system. And anybody that just kind of goes online and runs the numbers and looks at the rankings, it's not any data point I would hide. The challenge is what we haven't done is a good job of telling some of the exceptional stories. We have some really amazing and innovative charter schools, private schools, things going on that are aligned with, the Air Force Research Labs and space, and so there's some very cool things going on. So first we have to invest in ourselves and tell the right story. And then again, continue to align with the institutions in our community. So one of the things we are building coming out of our strategic plan launch is we have our strategy, we have our investors, we have our key leaders and partners as part of our organization, but there's a bigger ecosystem. And so one of the things we're building is a platform where everyone in the larger ecosystem. So for example, the New Mexico Technology Council, what they're doing and what their businesses need, they're extremely in touch with in that space. I don't need to duplicate that effort. I need to be in touch with them at any time, and we need to have that network. So the second something comes up that we need to address as a community, we can, circle those wagons. And, I mentioned the Tech Council, there's 15 other groups, organizations, and partners that may or may not be investors of mine. So kind of opening up that perspective of, even though we're a regional EDO and a nonprofit and we raise money, we can't close the doors to all the folks that need to be at the table. And so we're widening that.
Good deal. You mentioned in there the pandemic itself, everybody's favorite topic and favorite year, 2020. The impacts it's had, I think across the board. I think from my perspective, I just haven't seen any downtown area, large or small, get anywhere past about 70% of the volume of either visitation or workforce that they had previously. And that's kind of the upper echelon of it. A lot of people are down in the 60% range still.
Mm-hmm.
And it varies from region to region. So that's definitely a struggle, but certainly something long-term that hopefully and should not be a player. So I agree, it is the right time to invest in the infrastructure, the entertainment. You mentioned your soccer complex, going downtown. Reminds me, as you were talking about that, reminds me of something you might look at. There's a part of development in Frisco, Texas, which is a neighboring community where I am now. They did kind of the same thing, and the development that spurred around that is just incredible. As we talk about the pandemic, how have your views on talent attraction and retention stayed the same or changed, evolved since where you might have been in 2019? I think a lot of people so I'll throw it on the table. I am obviously working from home where I'm able to, here on Roberto Clemente Day, hang my Roberto Clemente jersey there. But our business, there's very few people in our office. There's just a handful of people on any given day that are there. And there are a couple of hundred others of us that are spread out throughout our region, but even across the country. How has that influenced or not influenced your views on talent attraction and the efforts that you're putting forward there?
Well, Chris, a lot of these talent issues we're having today were flying just under the radar in 2019, and people were talking, in Tallahassee, we had a 2.3% unemployment rate. So it was, but our businesses were still clamoring for talent and the need for talent. COVID allowed our talent partners to get more on the same page together and work more collaboratively with each other on how not only were we going to help talent now, but how are we going to help talent later? And so these are conversations that we're having actively right now in our community. We've had 2 meetings over the last month talking about building that one talent initiative that we can all have the same data that we're working for together, and lining those up with our economic development targets, and lining those up with the priorities of the community college and the tech here, and kind of do that. So it made us work harder and better together along those lines. And and employers, since we could do things on Zoom and didn't have to have them come into a lunch meeting, we found them being more participatory in the conversations as well. And it allowed the chambers and us to kind of pull together a little bit better with that. Zoom's good for things, and it's allowed people to have those conversations without having to worry about travel time in there too. And so that made things nice as well along those ends. But I think you had a question in the chat too that says, how hard is it to get people at the table?
Yeah, get them off the sidelines, right?
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it's difficult and other times it's just they realize that they have to be at the table because those conversations are going to happen, and they'll happen without you if you're not sitting down there too. And you want to be part of the team helping to make the solutions to pull them together. So their input and their new ideas coming in at the table, you have to make sure that they can, what Danielle said, they see action behind those and not just these are the same initiatives that we're talking about all the time, but these are the actions that we're taking towards those initiatives, I think is key to bringing in collaborators.
Yeah, and I feel like
heard too.
Bringing data to the table also in an interesting way mobilizes people, I've always found, in community efforts. Danielle, anything that you would add to that, like your perspective on talent attraction? You still got the same challenges you had in 2019 or in Albuquerque? I know you were in a different EDO at that point, but how's your viewpoint changed?
Yeah. Well, so first on the personal note, I agree, Christina. Zoom is and video. First of all, like I wish I had known this would be so big. I started using Zoom with a statewide association, like 10 years ago, had I had the foresight, but it's made things easier in some ways, but tremendously harder in other ways. It's probably been a year and a half. And I think everybody everybody on these calls are leaders and listening are leaders in some way. And, for me, it's been probably the hardest work and the highest stress I've ever had in my career because of that. But also very rewarding because when you can get things done in this manner with these restrictions, it's pretty awesome. In terms of the talent attraction piece, I found it really interesting because back in 2015 or even earlier, I was working on this in a really concerted way, but it was because I was in the city of Scottsdale and, we kind of had the opposite of problem that maybe I have in Albuquerque or other markets where Scottsdale was doing. It was pretty off the hook, really healthy economy. It's 5% of the Phoenix metro in population at about 250,000. But the last time I ran the numbers, it had 80% of like the regional offices and headquarters operations in the market. Huge. So C-suite just coming out of your ears, thousands of people at Nationwide. I had to give presentations after Bob Parsons with GoDaddy when he would wander up to the podium at 9 a.m. with a whiskey. And I was like, this guy's cool. And I can't top that. So, but really, I was a little spoiled with amazing things, but what happened is we said, okay, our biggest problem is losing these really blue chip employers. And they're calling us and telling us we're at risk of being lost. One that is now called Blue Yonder, I believe, that started as JDA Software in Scottsdale, had called us, probably, I don't know if it was 2016, it feels ages ago, but they said, hey, we've been acquired. There's 10 other markets in the US that have room to absorb us in their offices. Help us stay here because our employees want to stay in the community. So thinking about talent attraction, but also retention. So back then we started probably shifted our strategy to 60% of our work was business retention with a focus on talent. And so we started partnering with our companies. So I did things like, probably 16, 17, if not sooner, we started going to South by Southwest and promoting the community, but we brought companies with us. So I had technology companies with me and I had State Farm and Quicken Loans and Nationwide and all these folks going in just to start advertising and promoting the fact that we had career pathways and a diversity of opportunity in the community. So that was a lot of fun. And then we said, well, I'm sure somebody in the community is doing a good job of welcoming new residents. And we had one company that came from, you can't make those assumptions, you got to figure it out and then actually do it. So it's something that we'll be doing in this market as well. But there was a company, and I'm not remembering, I should have had it written down, but they were moving from back east and their first cohort of employees were 30 people that were all immediately picking up and fully relocating from another market. Pretty amazing. And we couldn't figure out why they wouldn't answer the phone. They'd announced this project and we're like, oh my God, are these guys for real? So I had this awesome business retention and expansion manager who's since retired out of Scottsdale named Bob. And I said, Bob, you go there and stand in their lobby until you get a business card or you get arrested. And he did it and he got a hold of them and they said, my gosh, thank you. We've been so busy. Long story short, their cohort found a great moving company, one of those moving companies that hijacked all of their furniture for months, and all of their employees were in panic. And then they got this rumor started that, scorpions will eat your babies if you move to Arizona, and that they're just, rampant along the walls like houseflies. And so we did a tremendous amount of work with that company, going in and creating custom presentations and welcome wagons, and how do you actually educate their employees, and how do you figure out, what their spousal employment needs are, and how do they connect to the community. So I think if, thinking about this in terms of their educational issues and needs, we also know that there are, disadvantaged population challenges and many things that are, either, that are, that's a whole other conversation about some challenges there that need to be addressed in communities. If anybody is curious, we did a really cool project in Sacramento with CARES Act funds, where we very, very rapidly, they did a tremendous job. I had left in the middle of it, but used CARES Act money to rapidly upskill people. And this is a company, Digital Assembly, that's doing it across the country.
Yeah.
So again, how do you use that to get people upskilled? How do you also really think carefully about the gaps in welcoming people into your community and providing those, I'd call them, those concierge services that you only know that they're needed if you have conversations with your businesses and their employees.
Good deal.
Yeah.
We have got about 5 minutes left, and we have got a few questions that have come in, and I think one of them is actually a pretty big topic and an important one. And that would be the impact of workforce or affordable housing and its availability in each of your areas of operation there. How is that playing in terms of attracting people coming in from the outside, or retaining what you do have? I know that's not anything. I'd imagine your areas are just like a lot of the rest of the United States. There are strains on affordable housing. So yeah, thoughts on that?
Well, our housing costs have just gone up over this past year or two. But we have the city of Tallahassee here started a loan program for affordable housing for building it. One of the recipients of the loans was a 3D homemaker. So we actually have a printed concrete home here in our Frenchtown neighborhood. It's the first one in the state of Florida as trying to find out a more sustainable, and then, this was happening during the spike in lumber prices too. So that received a lot of national attention for building that first 3D home here. One of the former state office complexes is currently being examined to be turned into some type of affordable housing. And we've seen some older hotels too being transitioned into affordable housing along that. And the county and the city have put together a work group to kind of look at possible solutions as well to address affordable housing.
Yeah.
Danielle, I know you and I talked a little about this earlier in the week. What is that housing situation like in your market? If I wanted to move to Albuquerque, where would I live?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the last I checked pretty recently, we've got under 800 homes on the market. That's tough, right?
In the whole metropolitan area.
Right. So my big concern is, and it's funny, and that's why we're having active conversations right now, because I said, hey, the city of Albuquerque itself, the main community, Jack Alston, a good friend of mine here, says Danielle can move everyone to Rio Rancho. And Jack, it's a tongue-in-cheek joke, but he's right. There are, so one of the things we're doing when we talk about regionalism is reminding everyone that there are new growth areas around the region. So then that drives conversations about infrastructure and transportation, and starting to build more commercial corridors in these other parts of the region. So that is a challenge, something we're definitely looking at closely. I know that the city of Albuquerque also just announced $300 million in investment in housing, in the support of development of housing. And we're also, again, looking at that downtown urban core And in that case, what we really need, we are doing pretty good on affordable housing there. What we need is market rate housing to start, driving that, continuing to drive that hip and trend factor right there. So yeah, absolutely. But according to Redfin, which I just pulled up, it says our Albuquerque housing market is at a 70, very competitive. So I'll just go with that.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, just coming, I think one maybe quick hit here that we might be able to do. So Danielle, you mentioned the soccer stadium downtown. So for some smaller communities that may not have the population or the finances to do that type of project, what are some other things that developments they can do in or adjacent to a downtown? Christina, I know you mentioned a amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater. Just spitball any types of ideas or things you've got experience with or you've seen in other communities. I always like to think of larger cities and metropolitan areas as just a collection of smaller neighborhoods and smaller towns, and you can kind of do incremental, smaller type of development. What are some things that project-wise that you've seen work?
On a very simple, small level for beautification in a downtown area, we got with our local arts group and they painted the utility boxes and murals, and it's beautiful. It certainly goes a long way from the green box to, now it's got cats or flowers. So that's a really, that's a beautification effort that was done by the county and the city, partnering with the local arts. We've seen splash pads and skate parks and just creating places where people of all ages can sit and play together, and adding in a bench underneath the oak trees here. We had people install swings too in the downtown area underneath some of our big, large oak trees, as well as a way to kind of make it more attractive and a collector of people.
So just things that kind of advertise the fact that this is a public space for people to get out and walk around. Danielle, anything that you might add to that?
Well, and I would just say, as you're building those things, even though, cost is always a factor, definitely think about making sure your infrastructure can support events and community events and public events. One of the things we were having to kind of backtrack and reinvest in Scottsdale is, we didn't have power to the right places. So you had these beautiful public lawns and areas where people could rent out space and hold gatherings outdoors, which is bigger and bigger now. But then, we realized they couldn't, power the generators and do all those things. So I would definitely look at, the International Downtown Association, the Sociable Cities Network. Those are both great organizations that can give you a billion ideas, but absolutely, I completely agree. Checking those things out and getting creative, having a nice, well-managed program. Again, it was a larger community in Scottsdale, but I think it translates to others. There was a fund where the city, the community, if people applied, would invest in and match marketing dollars for new startup events that the community brought forward. So, ways to help local event programmers do new things, do some food truck days downtown a couple days a week.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, I am going to thank you both. We're wrapping up here. Very much enjoyed the conversation. I know from some of the questions that we got that our audience did too. Hopefully got some gears turning. Going to share my screen here as we part here, and remind everybody that we will be sharing the recorded version of this going out to all registrants after today as we sign off here. So within the next couple of days this week, they'll be getting that in their inbox. I'd also encourage everybody to take out their phones and scan that QR code that is on the screen right now. We here on the Buxton side are offering up some complimentary analysis to help you understand some of the fundamental pieces, and that's people, the way they are moving, who they are, where they're going, and what they value, whether they're workforce, visitors, or your residents in your community, or even to explore some business expansion or retention potential that you may have. So scan that, and we will coordinate a time to walk you through that complimentary analysis. And please do take us up on that. We offer that every time we do an event like this, and it is It is actionable and useful. And as we mentioned in today's webinar, data can help get people to the table. And that's what we want to provide for everybody. So once again, thank you so much. Appreciate you, Danielle, for jumping on, taking time out of your busy schedule. Christina, you as well. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you are in the audience and you're going to the IEDC annual conference, please stop by and see us at the Buxton booth and consider attending. We will have a breakout session where the topic will be tackling the problem of food deserts and how data can help with that. Look forward to presenting that and getting some people in the audience. So thank you so much. And we're going to sign off with that. Bye-bye.
See you at IDC, Chris.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.